Hi, my name is Stephen Fairhall. My company is Right-Click Real Estate. I'm based here in Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE. This is my second interview with eFind RAK, and today I'm going to be talking about three core areas. The first is about the type of buyers who we see coming to buy property in Ras Al Khaimah. The second is the types of property we have here. And the third is how you manage the properties that you have here in Ras Al Khaimah. So the first type of buyer is the resident in the UAE. This is somebody who typically has a job, gets paid a salary, and they work for somebody. This is the easiest person to buy in the UAE because they will have full range of access to mortgage products in the market, and depending on their employer as to what rates they might get and what banks might lend to them. But typically this is the easiest option for somebody who can buy property here in Ras Al Khaimah. The second is the employer. This is the business owner. They maybe have just started a small company, or they have a bigger organization with hundreds of employees. But fundamentally, this is the person on the trade license who owns the company. Now, this person can buy, again, almost any property as the others can, but they will have slight differences into the mortgages and the lending facilities available to them. So most lenders will look to the self-employed business owner of having at least 3 years of audited records to be able to apply for the mortgage in the first place, or considerable savings aside which can be tied to the mortgage's added security. The third option is a non-resident. This is somebody who doesn't have a company, doesn't have a visa here in the UAE. This is the most difficult if you need mortgage facilities. If this person is buying the property in cash, or anybody is buying the property in cash, then it really doesn't matter because you don't have to worry about the mortgage and the lending associated with it. But if it's a non-resident and they do require a mortgage, which we do see a lot of, then this gets a little bit more difficult. The number of banks will reduce, and the terms that the banks offer also reduce. Normally not giving more than a 50% loan to value ratio, whereas the others, for a first property, can borrow up to 80% and a second property can borrow up to 60%. But a non-resident is capped typically at 50% of the value of the property. So now I will discuss a little bit more about the difference between primary and secondary property. Primary is off-plan. This is what's being built, and you probably all know that there's a huge amount of development going on in the UAE, not just Ras Al Khaimah, but all across the UAE. There's a rush of buildings under construction, and in 2024, to give you an idea, across the UAE it was said that there was one property launched every 18 hours for the entire year. So it's a very, very frenetic level of development going on across the UAE, and that's primary properties off plan. Secondary properties is the complete properties. So it's already been finished and handed over by the developer. It could be anywhere from brand new to a 20 or 30-year-old property and location. Now, the laws vary across the UAE from emirate to emirate, so there are some nuances to different locations. For example, in Sharjah and Ajman and Al Quwain, there's very, very little freehold property, but there are new off-plan projects coming, and you do have options there. The most famous is Dubai, followed by Abu Dhabi, and now very much coming to the fore is Ras Al Khaimah. A lot of focus is coming here because we have some big projects. You may even hear some noises going on behind me of some construction in the background. So there's lots happening in Ras Al Khaimah. So that's your primary and your secondary properties. So now bringing the focus back to Ras Al Khaimah, particularly for this interview, there are only a handful of communities in Ras Al Khaimah that are freehold, and I'll be focusing on that for now. So one of the main areas is Mina Al Arab, Al Hamra Village, Marjan Island, and RAK Central. So Mina Al Arab already has a number of 4 different villa communities that have been existing there for some years. Very recently, in the last few years, there have been a few tower apartment buildings that have handed over, and right now, this is talking in April 2025, there are a number of tower projects coming up to handover in Mina Al Arab. So that's your primary properties. Now moving down the road 5 minutes to Al Hamra Village, and this is where we're sitting today around the lagoon. In the background you can see Falcon Island. in Al Khaimah village. Just behind us we have Ellington about to start construction on 2 towers, and to my right, your left, they're building some more towers in Al Khaimah waterfront marina area. So Al Khaimah is one of the oldest expat communities in Ras Al Khaimah. There is approximately 1,800 apartments in several buildings and about 1,050 villas scattered around the community. Al Khaimah has always been a favoured for expats because there's a long-established expat community, schools, shops, golf club where we sit today, marina, and all of these kind of facilities. Now we move on to Marjan Island, and this is the big buzz that everyone's talking about because they've all heard of the Wind Casino. Now, there are only 3 projects complete, so 3 secondary projects available in Marjan Island today, but more than 40 projects have been launched to date already in Marjan Island, and there's more than 100 projects still to come to complete the master plan of Marjan Island. So Marjan is very, very much about the primary off-plan properties at the moment, but there are existing secondary options available. The 4th community is coming back to RAK Central. This was only launched last year. Only 1 tower has officially been announced, but we're expecting this year, 2025, to see several more projects announced in RAK Central. And for those familiar with Dubai, this will be the business centre hub of new Ras Al Khaimah. So RAK Central, just off-plan primary properties at this time. So the 3rd topic today was to talk about how you can have your property managed or looked after once you buy it. And this is particularly important for the non-residents and the very, very busy person who doesn't have the time to take care of it, or the knowledge, the skill, maybe they're in one of the other Emirates. So essentially, you're either looking at long-term rental or short-term rental. Long-term is where you'll get somebody in typically, and by law in the UAE, it's a minimum of a 6-month contract. So you're talking about someone who's coming in between 6 and 12 months. Now, generally, most long-term contracts in the UAE tend to be a 1-year contract. There are benefits and reasons why you may or may not want to take a 2-year contract, either as a tenant or as a landlord, and I'm happy to discuss this with people who are interested to know a little bit more about it. But in the long-term rental here, market norm is that you will have a tenant who pays by 4 checks. So as an investor, you need to be prepared to manage the cash flow of that. If you have a mortgage that requires monthly payments, but you're only receiving your payments once a quarter, you need to plan for that. The payments are in advance, but you need to manage your finances carefully. If you're looking at short-term rentals, this is, think the likes of Airbnb, Booking.com, these kind of platforms where people come along and they book the property for a night, a weekend, a week, maybe a month. The rates on these kind of properties are better, but the management required for them is a lot more intense because people are coming and going on high frequency. It needs more cleaning, more maintenance, someone to be able to regularly hand over keys, take back properties, check everything and take care of everything. So there are services available here in Ras Al Khaimah that can assist with both short-term and long-term. Okay, so now to expand a little bit further on the management, the rental side of the property, I'll talk about the fees and the legalities. For short-term rentals, you would typically expect the agents in the market to be charging between 8 to 10% per year of the rental value. Okay, on short-term, honestly, you can see anywhere from about 15, 18% all the way up to 25%. And while it might seem counterintuitive to go with a person with the higher fees, often they're the companies who bring the better results and more revenue. So for all of my clients, I suggest they have a look at both options. The local companies who typically charge a smaller fee, and the bigger regional companies, maybe based out of Dubai or Abu Dhabi, who have a much bigger footprint and presence, and they will get you better returns. From the legalities of the management side of things, if you're doing a short-term rental, you do need to register with the RAK TDA, that's the RAK Tourism and Development Authority, and you do pay a nominal fee to them, including a nightly fee based on how many people are staying at the property. However, for the long-term rental, the only municipal charge is a fee that is paid by the tenant. Okay, and that's equivalent to 5% of the value of the rent, and that will be paid by the tenant directly to the government. The agent, or myself if you're using me, will take care of all of that for you. Okay, so that wraps up our three main topics today: the types of people who are buying here, the types of property being primary, secondary, and also about how you manage your investment property once you've bought it. Now that comes back around to myself and my business and what I do. I'm a connector. I help my clients reach all the tools and resources and other people that they need to facilitate their transaction. So by coming to me, setting your strategy, setting the plan, I go to market, I find the property for you. I can then introduce you to the mortgage brokers, I can introduce you to the property managers, I can introduce you to the relocation people to move your furniture if it's you physically coming. I can introduce you to the maintenance companies. There's a long list of people that I have who work closely and regularly with me that I connect my clients to. And that's to make sure that the whole process, the whole journey for you is made as smooth as possible, and as much as possible with one central point of contact, so that you don't need to be going out trying to find all the other pieces of the puzzle to put together. I will do that for you.